The State Library functions as a place where a whole lot of knowledge comes together, and it therefore gives people like me an opportunity to do research I otherwise would never have the chance to do.
You don't need to be a professional researcher or academic to apply.
I like the all-inclusiveness within this fellowship.
Getting that moral support from everybody here in the library and the team and the foundation is just wonderful.
There's a great team here who are really supportive about furthering the research of histories that have been silenced or otherwise might not get the acknowledgement that they deserve.
Spend a lot of time going through the collection online before you make your application.
There's always opportunities. You can come back and try again, and always dig a lot deeper to yourself. You want the project to represent you.
It's a really simple process. There was about 6 questions I had to answer with detailed information.
You don't need to be from Queensland or living in Queensland.
As long as you have the interest and the passion, the tools are there to help you through it.
It shot me off in different directions. I ended up with 3 different projects out of this. This was truly enjoyable.
That was our ad for our fellowship program, which is now open for everyone to apply for. Welcome, I'm Gavin Bannerman. I'm the Director of Queensland Memory here at State Library of Queensland. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we gather and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that acknowledgement of country, connection to country and that previous history is something that we interrogate and acknowledge through every day the work that we do in telling Queensland's story and Queensland's history. I'd also like to just a few little housekeeping things. This recording is going to be, this session is being recorded and there'll be a recording made available in about a week. So if you know anybody who is interested in tonight's session but couldn't make it, and also acknowledging that we're doing this on State of Origin night. So, you know, for people who are believers and non-believers, it is a disruptive night for traffic and all those things. So thank you for making it on such a logistically difficult night. But this recording will be available about a week after this session via State Library's website. So the full recording will be available. Exactly everything we talk about will be there for you. Also, if you want to pick up anything that you missed from today's session. So I will just present a little bit of something which gives you the mechanism for how we're going to run tonight. We have an esteemed panel of people, and you have the opportunity for all the people in the crowd, so hello to the people in the crowd, but also hello to the people tuning in online. So we're live streaming this event. There are quite a lot of people tuning in remotely, so hello from wherever you're beaming in from. And we'll be using a program called Slido for people to submit their questions through this session. So I always joke that it was a hard slog to get people to use QR codes, but probably the one beautiful thing out of COVID was QR codes became part of our life. So if you take a photograph of this QR code, it'll take you to an online platform called Slido. And if you miss this, it'll periodically come back up. So it's not a now or never thing, but if you have that, it'll take you to a platform where you can ask questions through this platform. And the excellent Chrissy Theodosio, who's up in the bio box and is the sort of the brains of this operation, will be triaging them and sending them through to this control panel here, and we'll be going through those questions with our panel today. All of this work, the fellowships that we talk about being offered, the research that has happened to date is made possible through the contribution of the Queensland Library Foundation and fellowship donors. I really want to warmly thank all of those people who've come on board, who've contributed money, which goes directly to the bursaries for people to do the research. So it's really on the ground support to make these things happen. The fellowship program is delivered by the Queensland Memory team here at State Library of Queensland, and the call for nominations is now open. So if you want to jump onto the State Library of Queensland website under the Queensland Memory Awards section, all this information that we talk about, the packs and the categories and the amounts, FAQs, guidelines, etc., are all on that section of the website. Important, put it in your calendar. Closing date for applications is the 14th of August. So it's a bit of time, but it's like an assignment, you know, it's that kind of a month kind of whittles down very quickly. But so the 14th of August, close of business is the closing time. And yeah, the website is the place to go, which also has contact details if you want to follow up with more information. The platform through which you make the application on our website is a platform called Smarty Grants. So it's allows you to save as you go. It's not one of those things where you might lose your progress and have to start all over again. So it has that function built into it. And if you do get stuck for any reason, there's an email address of fellowships@slq.qld.gov.au, which is also on the information pages, but that can be your point of contact for any questions regarding the fellowship program. We also have, as well as the fellowships, we have two awards, which are kind of recognition for work in the field of Queensland history. So the John Oxley Library Award, which is for individuals primarily, and then the John Oxley Library Community History Award, which is for groups, is open for nomination. So you can nominate somebody that you think is worthy of recognition through that award program through the same online presence. We also then make visible, and I just want to give a little bit of a plug to our Research Reveals program, which is where we then present the outcomes of the fellowships. The people who've done the research, they then give presentations on their research outcomes, and that will be around February 2024. So the fellows who we acknowledged and started last year will be presenting that work in February 2024. So, and again, information will be on the website there. Now, what I want to do is introduce you to our speakers for today. So I'll welcome you to your tub chairs. First of all, I'd like to introduce Bianca Martin. Bianca was our 2002 and inaugural Rainbow Research Fellow. Bianca is a queer zine maker, writer, musician, and independent academic currently living in Toowoomba, Australia. Thank you for coming across the range, Bianca. Bianca has a Master of Arts from the University of Southern Queensland, majoring in English literature. Bianca's research area focuses on life writing and community identification within non-traditional narratives. Bianca has published in Zine's Journal and Literacy Learning, The Middle Years, and presented at conferences for Swinburne University of Technology and Deakin University. She's the creator of long-running weekly, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Perzine.
Perzine. Sorry, I thought I was hip with it, but I'm not. Rutzine. It doesn't have umlaut, so it's not root, it's rut, okay, which has been in circulation since April 2016. And opened the Toowoomba Zine Library in May 2022. Currently the only physical space to access zines in the area and run the bi-monthly Toowoomba Zine Club. She's also extremely passionate about creating a space for research and academia to be accessible through supporting the DIY and self-publishing community. So, welcome Bianca. We're very lucky to have you. I'd also like to introduce John Piccini. John is a lecturer in history at Australian Catholic University, where he focuses on Australian politics and culture, read through a global prism. His most recent book is Human Rights in 20th Century Australia. You'll be signing copies of those afterwards, John. And his current projects include a history of American rest and recreation leave in Sydney during the Vietnam War, and an intellectual and cultural history of Australian engagement with decolonisation after the Second World War. He's been a judge in the Queensland Memory Awards since 2019. And last but not least, Margaret Warren, who we're lucky to have as our Director of Digital Delivery here at State Library of Queensland, oversees so many things, but very importantly and pertinently today, she has had a long-running involvement with the Digital Collections Catalyst program here at State Library, which we're very excited to announce as part of the Queensland Memory Award suite on offer. We have offered it for 3 years now, but this is the first time that it's going to be incorporated on the same timeline as the Queensland Memory Awards. So welcome, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to kick off. We've already got a few questions coming through, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. I just want to preface today, please ask any question. There is no question that's silly or dumb or that we would think, why did they ask that? If I didn't work at State Library, I don't think I would know what a fellowship is. And to be honest, that's half the battle of raising awareness of what a fellowship is, and that people who might not see themselves as capital R researchers, that this is for them. But I want to stress that you can be an academic, and we've had lots of people, esteemed academics do the fellowships, but it's not a requirement that you are auspiced by a university. So please ask questions, and this is really a resource to give you the information to write the best application you can write. Okay, I might just start and kick it off. I'll start with you, Bianca, because you are currently in the middle of your fellowship.
Yeah.
And do you want to, and thank you for featuring in the promo video, do you want to just talk a little bit about that? It's not so long ago that you applied, and how you felt 12 months ago and the process that you went through to prepare your application.
Yeah. I had huge amounts of self-doubt in terms of applying for this, and I went back and forth going, what are my chances of getting through? I'm not an academic. I don't have a strong research background. And then, my idea is about zines, which, we talk about people not knowing fellowships, people don't know zines. And I'm thinking I'm applying with this idea that, people have no idea what it even is. But I had a particularly kind of average time at work, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get it if I don't apply for it. So I just ended up applying for it.
I think that's a good message. You can't get it if you don't apply. And that, in Rachel West Captain's case, who is a Monica Clare Fellow this last year, she had that attitude of like, if I don't apply, I can't do this. And I want to do this, so I may as well apply. I was just going to ask a little bit about that actual research undertaking to... How did you gather that information in order to do your application? Did you do it in one go, or was it an incremental process?
I think I did it on and off over the process of about a week. It was kind of once I got the solid idea behind it, I found it really easy to, envision what I wanted to make the application about. And then it was about, fine-tuning it to specifically answer some of the questions, which... Like there are a few things where you can, I think specifically mention items from the collection, or you can kind of talk about your own ideas of deliverables and outcomes, which, it seems so daunting to think about that when you haven't even started the fellowship of like, what am I actually going to achieve from it? But I think it also helps you get a clear idea of how you want to explain what you want to research.
John, I'm going to throw to you because you're the category of person on the other side of the table. You're the assessor, the person on the selection panel. We work with this philanthropic team who assess applications for philanthropic funding, and he had a really good way of describing what they do, that they assess all of these applications with a warm heart but a cold eye. And I thought, that is kind of like... one thing that is amazing about this process is we get, so many applications. We get a lot of applications, and they're fantastic, and it's so exciting to see people put themselves out there and say, I want to do this research. I want to investigate this aspect of Queensland history. I want to tell this story. I'm really excited about this. And seeing all of these ideas come through is a very special kind of position to be in, because you see the gamut of ideas and different ways that a person could respond to the brief and to the call for applications. But I just wanted to kind of ask your kind of, what are you looking for when you get that email with all of those applications in it?
Yeah. Thanks, Gavin. I am an academic, yes. Guilty, but I also have written many unsuccessful grants. So that, yes, has got to celebrate the losses and the wins. Look, what do you look for? Honestly, the first thing you want to have in a grant is a good hook. I think you're just commenting once you get a good idea. That's kind of the base of a good grant, is something that can really hook you in. A good title, catchy sort of title, is really important, because when you go through and you're assessing a whole bunch of applications, you want something that's going to grab you, right? So that's the first thing that I would see. The second thing is kind of a solid.
Not a clickbait title though.
Look.
Not like Donald Trump said this. I can't believe it or something.
Yeah, nothing about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Ideally, let's keep him out of our applications if we could. And I mean, the second thing I'd look for is a clarity of what the person actually wants to do. You want to see that they've got passion for this project that they've come up with, but that it's also kind of deliverable and makes sense. What I mean by deliverable is that, they've got an idea and they've spent the time narrowing down that idea into something that makes sense and something that has a range of outcomes, including maybe academic, but also popular. And the third thing, which is really important, is how well does it actually engage with the State Library's collections? And that's something that we often kind of, as researchers, we often don't think about enough. We think, this is a great idea that I've got, and I'm gonna blow their socks off with this idea. Some of us might think that. Some of us might cower under our desks actually thinking of the prospect. But we also need to be aware that we have a good idea, but that good idea needs to be able to encapsulate what's actually available in the State Library's collections, of which they are many. There's a lot, and maybe even also have ways in which we might be able to extend on that collection in different ways. So those would be kind of three key things that I'd look for, particularly for this award. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, John. Margaret, the Digital Collections Catalyst. You are so experienced and knowledgeable about our collections. I think you've got tentacles and things to offer all across. But
Yes.
Staying on track with the Digital Collections Catalyst, can you just give us a bit of an explanation of who can be a catalyst and what skills do they need to be the catalyst?
Yeah, I think the Digital Collections Catalyst, perhaps the best way to sort of talk about that would be just to give a really quick summary of the two previous catalysts we've had. The first one was Dr. Keir Winesmith, and what he did was to use, and it's really exactly what you said, he came up with a great idea and he was able to hone that idea, but then he also made sure that it was about our collections. And so what he did was to look at historic maps and to develop an interface, a digital interface, using those collections that allowed individuals to pick a future Brisbane that they would like, and then for that to come to life. So were they looking for a future Brisbane that had more green space or different types of residential development? There was a lot of criteria that you could do, all built upon previous maps of Brisbane, and then you had that experience as a person to come in and choose the future Brisbane that you wanted. The second catalyst was a man called Brett Tweedy, and he looked at more than 12 years of search logs of our library catalogue, so what people were looking for in the library catalogue in our collections, and did a topographical map by frequency of different search terms over that 12-year period, and looked at, emotional searches and all sorts of really, really creative ways of interacting with collections, particularly using technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, but really not in some sense it's around that automated decision making, but machine learning techniques, or I guess I like to look at looking at digital collections through computational analysis to look at outcomes and deliverables. So it's sort of in the sphere we're talking about is collections as data. So it's taking a data-driven approach to new knowledge. So we've always used collections as data. But in the Digital Collections Catalyst, we're really looking at ways for people to be innovative and exploratory with technology to help that research process to deliver an outcome. So that's what we're looking for there. And we're really looking for innovative ways for the technologies to be used to do inquiry. And I suppose as a library, we're also then looking at, intentional digitisation to make that easier for people to do. So using collections that might have optical character recognition layers run over them, or handwritten transcript text files that come out of it, to really increase the capacity for researchers to actually interact this way. It's actually really it's as much beneficial to us as it is beneficial to the applicants in the Digital Collections Catalyst, for us to be on that leading edge of the beneficial ways that technology can be used for research outcomes. Apply. It's great.
Yeah, can Chat GPT be used for an application? I don't know.
I don't know. When I did a biography for myself with ChatGPT, and it turned out I was the State Librarian of Victoria. I had an OAM and I was dead. So, I died in 2017.
The Australian Research Council has just banned ChatGPT from being used, including by reviewers of grants.
Ooh.
There's been some naughty people.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully that's given a bit of an overview, a bit of a context. One thing a point I just did want to make, don't assume that people at State Library know that everything is in our collection. Our collection is measured in the kilometres, and we rely on people like you, researchers and fellows, to surface those collections, interpret those collections, and make the combinations of these things to tell those stories. We, like everybody, have a view of the collection, but I've worked here for 18 years and there's still only a portion of it that I really know really, really well. So we rely on that external view, people coming in and doing their fellowship and coming at it with a fresh perspective, and that is particularly valuable for us. All right, that's enough rattling on. This is a key question, I think, which will maybe resonate with a few people. How do you demonstrate capability for a fellowship if you come from a non-academic background? Anybody want to?
I think any sort of ability to show that you can manage projects or work to deadlines, or that you can work independently, right? Even if it's not necessarily about having a deliverable at the end. It's to show, I understand the idea behind timelines and the fact that things are due at certain points in the year, and, different ways that you can show that, even if you use retail work experience to show that. I think that's totally valid.
I agree. I think the transferability we've had people who've been social workers or community development professionals, and they say wanted to do oral histories with people, which is just like a form of qualitative research. And I don't think the thing of being an academic is relevant to only a small part of what the fellowship is. The fellowship also includes being able to speak confidently about your topic and make it interesting to people. That you could be a journalist or a writer or a school teacher. In a classroom, you've got to make history relevant to kids and make it engaging for them. So I think the skills from multiple disciplines can be relevant and transferable.
I'd like to just pick up on a comment that John made too as well. I think when you're expressing your idea in the application, the clarity of the scope of it and being able to communicate it in a way that is understandable to others. Oh, wow, this is actually a really interesting idea, and it's got a connection to a collection, collections of the library, and I can see that this person understands something of the scope of the work that they want to do. That's a really encouraging set of, set of guidelines to help a judging panel understand, yeah, this person can deliver, and they've got a really interesting idea.
I'll get this one over. This is a quick win. Bianca, what's a zine?
A zine is a self-published, independent miniature magazine, I guess, for lack of a better term. It can contain writing or art or any sort of mixture of any of those things.
Great, thank you. I'm going to throw this question to... sorry, Hannah's just moving around. It's moving. Okay, John, because I know this is probably a bit of a thing that you have input and feedback around when you're on the assessment panels, but it's a question of how specific should we be about the library resources we're going to use? For example, I've looked, but I won't know precisely what's there until I start researching.
Yeah, no, that is a really good question, and there is a point at which you can list too many collections. Because it's like half the library would be relevant to me. It's like, well, you can't actually look at half the library, and you do need to be specific to kind of a few key collections I've found over time. I have made applications for half the library, as Gavin knows, and I think actually what we need is to choose a few key collections that you might want to look at. Often there are finding aids associated with these collections. It'll help you to get a bit more granular. But also, as I saw was one of the questions that's just popped up, is you can talk to the librarians. If you want to know a bit more about the collection, you can pop into the library and actually pull out some of these boxes before you apply. Or you can talk to a librarian via email or over the phone, and they'll be able to help you get a bit more detail of what's actually in these collections. So when you're presenting this to the panel that it's convincing, because the panels are made up of people who may, like me, who don't know the library's collections super well, but also Gavin is on them, who does know the library collections well. So it's not much will get past us. We need to be clear that you understand what's in those collections you want to look at.
I think what you want to do as well is demonstrate that you have looked. Nothing makes my heart swoon more than seeing like the specific identifier of a collection. It's like saying something like, resources on Trove or newspapers on Trove is very general. What we are looking for is an indication that that you're not just wanting to do this research anyway, but really what State Library has within its collection is a core component, and connecting with that with the unique things that State Library holds is an essential thing to making your research possible. If it's just looking at things like family history databases or that sort of thing, they're available through lots of different places. So what's the compelling reason why this research has to happen at State Library is a kind of critical thing you can demonstrate. Okay, this is a question probably best for you, Margaret. Did previous digital collections Catalyst winners have support from State Library, from the ICT team?
Yes, they do. There's an internal staff member who supports the Catalyst, and there's a conversation early on about sort of what sort of resources. The guidelines make it really clear what the Catalyst needs to provide and what support is being provided by State Library. But certainly in terms of getting data into, taking data out of collections into usable forms for the Catalyst, that's something that we can provide, and we would. That's what we would do to support initially the Catalyst doing their work. So that's a key component. Very important to have that conversation early on, and you can certainly ask about those sorts of things. But it's important to read those guidelines so you're sort of really aware what you need to provide or what you need to have, the capability for, and what you need to have the skills for. And even if you're looking at a sort of a machine learning thing, we wouldn't be providing you with your PC to do that work, so you'd need to just think about what it is that, but in terms of making the data available, we would have that for you, that support.
Excellent. There's a question about, can we capture new digital media to include in the catalogue as well as resources from the existing catalogue? Yes, absolutely. There's an area where you have to demonstrate the use of the collection from State Library's unique collections, but there's also an opportunity for you to demonstrate how you could strategically add to the collection at State Library. So there might be a topic in which we don't have a particular strength. It might be, with a particular group of, a particular geographic area where there hasn't been much done on a particular primary industry or whatever topic. That you could create, and often it's in the form of oral histories, because people do often, that's a way often of encouraging people to participate in a research project. It could be photographs, it could be written stories, it could be personal collections that people have as well. Often, we had one fellow working, Tony Risson, who looked at Greek cafes in Queensland, and that literally, we held a kind of a session for members of that community, and I think somebody brought in a sign from one of their families, ex-cafes, and people were bringing photographs. And what is wonderful about working with collections is people bring the items, but the items become themselves an aide-de-memoire for telling stories. So there's an interconnection there. So often as a researcher, as you're looking at things and at a topic and a person or an organisation, you'll then come across people in the community who have collections, and some of the most interesting collections we've got have been brokered by a fellow in that way. Okay, this is a popular question. So, are there preferred or necessary types of outcomes for the fellowship? I'll put the digital collections catalyst to one side, but for a lot of the fellowships, and this is like a slight nuance, which is, hopefully I do my best to explain it, but what these fellowships is they are providing you time and resource to do the research component of a project. We don't expect or mandate you to necessarily deliver a finished project within 12 months. So what it does is you might say, look, I'm looking to write a history of a particular manufacturer who was based in Chinchilla at some time, and that book might not be realised until 2-3 years after your fellowship, but you have to do the research component of your project over that 12 months. So there's not a necessary kind of heavy requirement that all of the outcomes are realised through that fellowship. But what we do require, and with the agreements that we get people to sign, there's a few milestone things that you have to do, which is blog posts, you provide a bibliography, and you provide these at the milestones in order to get paid, for each of the things. So there's a little bit of an incentive. And then it's also close to the conclusion of the research, there's a presentation at our Research Reveals event. So there are some mandatory requirements to do those things which kind of evidence your research, but necessarily something like an exhibition or a publication, or people have prepared screenplays with our fellowships. It's not like we're expecting Channel 9 to screen that on TV within 12 months. So we understand that these things sometimes do take time to be fully realised. Okay, so the next question, which has 3 upvotes, is how is practice-based research assessed? Is it given the same degree of consideration as more traditional research outputs? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, practice, there's an awful lot of non-traditional, what we might call non-traditional research outputs out there. Absolutely. Like a zine, like a screenplay, like someone did a person who was working on all the sound files and
Seth
songs.
Ellis.
People working on bird songs.
The instances of sound in archives.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of possible outcomes. Absolutely. Like even in academia now, we're being kind of said, think about the public-facing stuff, the non-traditional research outputs. It's absolutely a thing. So I don't think you need to, write a journal article
in
a peer-reviewed journal. You might do that. If anything, though, the library probably would like a bit more public focus than that, really. So yes, as academics, we'll have an article or two, but then also you'll have an exhibition, or you might contribute to a screenplay, or contribute towards a documentary series, or any number of things. I really couldn't think of too many things that couldn't be considered a potential output. Interpretive dance, I'm open to it. Not personally, but I'm open to the idea. Yeah,
we have a lot of people. Choreography is a really big thing that
totally.
people.
I'll put my hand up for musical works.
Yeah.
Sorry, I started as a music librarian. So I got a very vested interest in that. Come and talk to me about Edwina Edkins if you want a nice research idea.
So hopefully practice-based sort of outcomes that covers that off. This is a good and relevant question about the assessment panel for the Rainbow Research Fellowship. So is that assessment panel made up of members of the LGBTQI plus community? And yes, every member is a member of that community and identifies as a member of that community. Full disclosure, I'm on that panel. I don't a cis white guy, but I'm on that panel just as an observer, and I don't have a casting vote or anything in that panel. But that's the idea of like nothing about us without us in these kind of categories, I think are really important. And I think to have that, to have the most considered assessment of those applications, I think that representation was considered really important. So we don't disclose all of the details of every person on the panel, but we give a list of all the judges on the website, and we make that information publicly available afterwards. This is okay. This question has. There's a few which I can kind of give the nuts and bolts answers. So can you please tell me what is expected of a referee for the John Oxley Fellowship? So what we want to do is get you to provide the details of people who have observed or have some knowledge of your work history, your research capability, that sort of thing. There's a similar like a job application. So what we would normally do is often some of the more like frequent times that we call on fellows referees is to verify, or someone might say, oh, I'll be writing a screenplay for a Hollywood blockbuster, coming out in 2025. Having the information of a referee allows us to verify some of these claims, and it's particularly, we don't contact every referee. It's similar to a job interview where we would probably contact referees to, if a couple applicants are really close, to compare and contrast and to consolidate and verify information that we think would be very critical to that being a successful application. So what is required for those referees is I would make those people aware that you've applied, because there's nothing worse than a referee being contacted and they don't know that you're referee. So I think first to be aware that they are a referee, and then second, be available in some form. There's not it's not like job referee. It's not a written process where it's a really arduous kind of, we need them to provide a written referee report often, but it's basically for them to have a knowledge of your capability, your work history, be available and be aware that they are a referee. Okay, what is the data in the Digital Collections Catalyst program? Is it all online already in the catalogue, or is there more on site? Can it be extended by request?
So we've got, it would be using our digital collection, so we have significant hundreds of thousands of digital files of collection material that has already been digitised. But if there were, and that can be, we have quite a lot of our digital collections that are already available through the Queensland Open Data Portal, but we can organise the extract of data for anything that's you require. That could be the digital content and all of the metadata related to that. That would be in consultation with the staff who would be supporting the Digital Collections Catalyst. And I certainly know with our first Catalyst, we did get some maps digitised for Dr. Winesmith to work with. So, yeah, I mean, we're not going to do 100,000 pages of digitisation for a single catalyst, because that would be beyond our capacity. But yes, if there are specific items that might support the Digital Collections Catalyst, we'd be open to that conversation.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm going to absolutely abuse the that you are here on this panel. Margaret used to be the chair of our copyright board, a group, so I'm going to throw a copyright
ex officio
question.
now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a leading question. Are there any copyright considerations with using materials in the catalogue, e.g., audio files?
I'm going to give you the perfect example that you get when you ask for copyright advice It depends. There may be, and certainly one of the things we do with our digital collections is identify the copyright status of that material. Audio collections, it does really depend on the time and the permissions that were gained at the time that it was done. Audio files much easier than film or video files to clarify both the extension, the date of copyright, or whether it can be used through a licensing scheme. I think the important thing to know with copyright material is nothing can't be used. Some things just need permission. So some things don't need permission, some things do need permission. And I would encourage you not to exclude something because you think it might have a problem, but it could take that the time required to get the permission to use is the thing that people underestimate, generally by a factor of 5,000, how much time it might take to get permission to use something. So yeah, don't exclude things, but always be thinking about permission is what you need for your requirements. The vast majority of our digitised collections are material that is out of copyright. So that is, generally speaking, produced before 1954. So with most of our image collections, it's not going to be a problem. Quite a lot of our image collections are also, they might be licensed using Creative Commons licenses, so that gives you the permission, you'll know what permissions you have to do with it. But with more recent material, and particularly if your research endeavours are in the 60s, 70s and 80s, which is really a bit of a black hole in terms of permissions, where post then it's more likely that you're going to be able to find an owner and sort of work through that conversation. Pre then, it's more likely to be out of copyright. 60s to 80s is a tough time, and I know that that's a period where a lot of people want to be doing their research, and so the problems can be resolved, but you need to start early with regard to getting the permissions required.
I think it's important to point out as well, there's nothing sort of copyright-wise in terms of accessing those materials and using for research purposes those materials. It comes into effect when you want to reproduce those materials and republish them. That becomes the kind of critical point where you need to.
So I guess if you're thinking of a non-traditional output, say a creative work or the reuse of someone's work, or the digital collections catalyst might have some things that need to be thought about. Yeah, exactly right, Gavin. It's in the reuse and the copying that you then need to think about those permissions. Anyone can come in and do it. And use things, and certainly for your own research and study, if you want, for your purpose of doing the fellowship, if you want to make a copy of something, you can do that because you've got provisions in the Act to allow you to do that. It's just then when you reproduce it publicly that it's going to be, there could be some twisty, grunty things that need to be worked through. Mm-hmm. I love the twisty, grunty things.
There's a question here about the microfiche available at State Library. So the State Library, this is the comment, has microfiche which are poor quality. The originals in the Mitchell Library, which is in the State Library in New South Wales, are excellent. Would originals be of use to the Oxley collection? I think is the question. I mean, in some cases, it depends what that microfished material is of as well. So often there's all sorts of different things that have been microfished over time. There was the joint copying project which digitised a large amount of material, and sometimes you can you can get there's a generational sort of loss of some microfiche, and some is better than others depending on when it was microfished. Some things in the 70s is like super high contrast, but we probably, re-microfishing things is probably not the most common approach now. Like digitisation is probably more common because it allows you to do what Mara is talking about with collections as data research. It allows you to search across multiple data sets or digitised sets of microfiche if it might be in cursive writing, but if you can get it in a machine readable format, you can start to think about, if you're reading a diary, you got to read every word on the page, but if you have a Word document, you can just Control F to find a name. It's that kind of thing. But did you want to talk maybe, we're doing a bit of work with the Colonial Secretary's correspondence, and that's probably an example of things that were on microfiche or microfilm that are now being made available in a different way, which enables research to be done in a different way?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting collection. So it's the Colonial Secretary's correspondence that's all matters related to do with Moreton Bay that we had microfilmed from the New South Wales Records Office in the 1980s. And maybe a few years ago, I can't remember, 3 or 4 years ago, we had some additional funding and we digitised that correspondence. It's about 16,000 pieces of correspondence from 1822 to 1859, 1860, so pre-Queensland becoming a colony. That's all been digitised. It's all had what we call HTR, which is handwriting, converting the handwriting to a text file, and then those text files are now actually being having volunteers run over it, because you can imagine with messy 19th century handwriting, it's not 100% accuracy, but the machine readable, the machine transcript is about 70% accurate, which is pretty awesome in comparison. When you look at some of the letters, it's pretty scary. And at the same time, we're building the finding aid, the collection guide for this collection. And so I think 20% of it is now available online, so you can see it, and the transcripts will be available, and those text files can be downloaded. So there's lots of opportunities for interesting research in that early part of Queensland history that's coming with the Colonial Secretary's correspondence in a range of fields. So if you are interested in that, please contact us, because we can certainly make that material available to you. We have a 20-year effort that went into doing an index to the Colonial Secretary's correspondence. I went to the Queensland State Archives, and the most common word that's used to describe the Colonial Secretary's correspondence is impenetrable. And there is amazing content in there for researchers. Just finished making a little promo for funding for the Colonial Secretary's correspondence, and in the stories I told, you've got advocacy for social justice for Irish convicts in there. You've got the whole sad and sorry story of Patrick Logan and murder and all sorts of things. You've got the development of agriculture and what plants were sent to the colony for the botanical gardens. You've got letters from Cunningham. You've got letters that may have First Nations Indigenous languages in them. It's extremely broad in its context, and having it available in a digital format that can be searched broadly is, I think, going to make research very interesting for this very early part of Queensland's history. So yeah, if you are interested in that, please contact us, and we can put you on to, if you want to have a look at what's there now and what could be available to support your research, it would be a really good tool.
Great. This next question is whether you can apply for multiple fellowships with the same project, if it's appropriate. Yes, you absolutely can. In Smarty Grants, you can tick the box of which fellowship categories you want this to be applicable for. So you can do it that way. Also, though, if you're, say, doing a project, if you're doing 2 projects of different kinds, you need to two drastically different topics. They need to be done separately. I'll just, for everyone's benefit, this information's on the website, but I'll just kind of run you through the categories. So you've got the John Oxley Library Fellowship. So that's, sort of very Queensland history related, general Queensland history. That's $25,000 stipend. And I should note that a lot of these are now increased by $5,000, the fellowship amounts. Then we've got the Monica Clare Research Fellowship. We had an information night last night for potential applicants for that. That's for people to investigate Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander history through Queensland. And that is an identified fellowship, so you need to be an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander researcher to do that. We're very excited to have the Saganto Foundation on board to support that. And we've had 2 fellows now kind of go through that process, through the fellowship process. No, 3. We've got, Dr. Fiona Foley, Rachel West Captain, and Max Brearley, who I think is in Harvard at the moment doing his research, enabled by all the wonderful things, the research he's doing, the very important research he's doing. We've also got the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame Fellowship. Oh, sorry, my daughter's friend is like trying to FaceTime me to play Roblox. I'll say no. So that's looking at Queensland's business and economic history, and that has, very particular connection to, the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame, where we recognise and induct businesses that have contributed to Queensland's economic development over that time. People sometimes get a bit confused that if they are doing research on a business or an entity, that means that they will be entered into the Hall of Fame. It may contribute, but there isn't that direct relationship necessarily. They run as separate things, but it enables you to look at Queensland, an aspect of Queensland's business history, which we've had very broad applications of that. We've had researchers look at the Queensland fashion industry in Queensland. We had Tony Risson, who looked at the Greek cafes aspect from the business aspect. She had a thesis that Greek cafes were actually a proto-fast food industry because they codified the food and drink offer. If you saw a Greek cafe, it was kind of like seeing a McDonald's or a Hungry Jack's or Kentucky Fried Chicken sign now, because you knew you'd get the milkshake, you knew the general price point, and you knew what the hospitality offer would be. So she really looked at a business kind of perspective. And then we also have the Digital Collections Catalyst, which attracts $15,000 funding for the successful applicant. So that's what Margaret has been talking about in that sort of scope. Then we've got the Christina Bougen OAM Fellowship, which is particularly focused on the work of a very influential Queensland musician and academic, Christina Bougen, who you also know a lot about, Margaret. I feel like we're really getting
your money's
our
worth out of me
research
tonight.
This will be offered over 3 years, and this is the second of the 3 years for people to look at that collection and look at the legacy of Christina Bougen. Do you have a pithy anecdote you want to share about Christina Bougen?
Sure, I could talk about Mr. Bougen, otherwise known as God to his music students. But no, Christina Bougen, it's, his wife was, she was a musician and performer in her own right, and was a really seminal figure, particularly in the semi-professional musicians in that time period. In fact, both of my parents sang, they were sort of semi-professional musicians, and Christina Bougen was one of their accompanists in their early years when she was very young and they were very young. So I think that's probably, and it's a really rich collection because there's synergies between both of their careers. But she had an independent career of her own, but I think sometimes, and very, very seminal in concerts in Brisbane City Hall, but sometimes overshadowed by the more prominent, her more prominent partner.
And then the last of the fellowships on offer is the Rainbow Research Fellowship, which is $20,000 to share Queensland's queer history. And then there are 2 awards, so the John Oxley Library Award and then the John Oxley Library Community History Award. And the John Oxley Library Community History Award does attract, for the winners, it's a $5,000 prize is attached to that. Okay, so very long answer, but yes, you can apply for multiple categories with one application. Okay, so we're getting close. I'll run through these. If we have ideas for 2 different categories, will we submit for both? 2 different ideas, or would it be viewed as a disadvantage, and should we prioritise one? I think that's a good conversation. I mean, you could have that. If you're contacting us, we obviously can't. We can give you advice as per how it connects to the guidelines of the different fellowship categories. We can't tell you would win with this, you won't win with this. We need to be provide. We can't disadvantage people. We have to be very fair and equitable in how we talk to prospective applicants. But I think that you can, if they're both of equal merit, I'd encourage you to submit both. But if you have one where you're like, this is my, I don't know, I feel like you're going to have one which you really want to win. Like you're going to have one that tugs your heartstrings. So it takes effort to put that together. And I would, I'd really do what you believe in. Like I wouldn't put one through just because you think you have to or whatever. So it's the one that, because if you do it, it's going to be 12 months of your life doing that research. So I think it's follow your heart and what really resonates with you. What is the expected time? Time commitment for a fellowship. So just some very, you can be interstate and do your fellowship. We had Henry Rees was based in Melbourne during COVID for parts of it, and would come up to Queensland for periods to do his research. He was a John Oxley Library Fellow 2 years ago, and we had other fellows. Madonna Green was one who was based in Melbourne as well, and would frequently arrange like intensive periods of coming up, because accessing the collection is an important part of your fellowship, but it's very seldom that you'll be like pulling boxes out and looking at material for the full 12 months. You'll have a phase where you're going very wide with finding all your materials, then you'll have a consolidation phase of bringing it in. So the time requirements, it's very open-ended in terms of how you want to structure it compared to your working arrangements, or what suits you. The main thing is that you do meet those commitments of the blog posts, the Research Reveals presentation, and other than that, it is quite open-ended in how you want to do that. With a digital collections catalyst, if you're working with a lot of digital collections, physical proximity might not matter as much. But also, I can't overstate this, there is something really lovely about that incidental conversation with staff. And we've had a lot of fellows who, in the tea room, are talking about, I'm really stuck on this thing. And a staff member will be like, have you tried this collection? So it's kind of a bit like with COVID and us going from working remotely to then working in person. There is something about that incidental conversation which might spark unanticipated sort of research directions. I'll run through these really quickly, so sorry. I feel like I'm like trying to drive us home. Okay, can you apply for a fellowship and be self-funded? I'm not 100% sure. I'll answer this in a couple of ways. We have in the past offered the John Oxley Library Fellowship. We have given John Oxley Fellowship, which with the bursary, with the money attached, but we have given an honorary John Oxley Library Fellowship as well. So there's no bursary amount for that, but you do get all the benefits of access to the reading room. I haven't really talked about the Fellowship Lounge, the Neil Roberts Fellowship Lounge. Neil Roberts Fellowship Lounge. So that is a space back of house. If you've been in the John Oxley Library, it's kind of a space at the back, like behind the doors. That's what's behind the doors in the reading room on level 4. So you get all that access, but you don't get the money to do it. So if the question is about being self-funded in that way, that is something we can choose to award an honorary. If it's a question of if you are successful and you get given the money, things like your travel to come up if you're from remote, if you're not from Brisbane, or if you need to do those things, that they're kind of things that you have to make those arrangements. And we did have a question, I think yesterday, for the Monica Clare Fellowship of how do I have to spend that money? It's like, it's kind of yours to do whatever you want with it. It's not like a grant necessarily where you need to acquit like how you spend the money. It's kind of like paying for a block of your time to do that work required. Can you apply for fellowship while being a uni student, or is completing the degree necessary? No, you don't have to complete that degree that you're doing. You can be doing undergrad, you could be doing TAFE, you could be doing whatever. It's if you've got a good idea that is of significance, that has impact and is doable, they're the things that we're kind of looking at. Also, you need to be mindful of your time constraints of, if you're going to do a full-time study load, and, people do need to think about when the times to do the things are, and often mid-semester and end of semester breaks. If people do have academic loads, that's a big thing they think about. Can you receive a fellowship while on a PhD scholarship? We've got really particular rules about that, so you kind of can't double dip in that way. There's really specific in the guidelines. It lays out what is and isn't possible if you've received funding for that research project through like a PhD scholarship. So read those guidelines and it'll give you a pretty clear indication. Okay, regarding accountability reporting, if successful in a fellowship, what does this process look like? So I'm taking this is demonstrating somebody successful, they're doing the fellowship. In terms of the checking in, I suppose, and the reporting, we do ask for basically on the milestone, it's basically just an outline of what research you've done to date, those outcomes, like basically like what's been done to date, and then also that kind of is then contextualised by the blog post that you've written, which is like the story of the research that you've done and the outcomes of the research. It's just an internal thing that's not published on the website or anything like that. And then probably one of the most important things as in terms of what forms the report at the end is that bibliography, which then enables other researchers who are interested in the topic to see the collections that you've used. So that's a really helpful thing to do. That was a bit rapid at the end, but that's all the questions, I think.
Sorry, Gavin, will you take one from the audience?
It is just difficult. If you say it to me, you might not pick it up on the microphones for the people remote, but do you want to just say it and I'll restate it back?
Okay, thanks very much. Selection criteria, one specific one, collection, use and creation. This is for the John Oxley Fellowship. Significant use of or contribution to the State Library collection. Is there any sort of weighting, informally or otherwise, given to, well, have you mainly relied on the John Oxley collection, or have you found this great trove of information and archives elsewhere?
Yeah. So the question is, in terms of collection use and creation, the amount of consideration we give to the collections identified from State Library, or are they from elsewhere? I mean, it's not a problem if you identify other materials. So often if somebody's doing research, Queensland State Archives, National Archives, the other state libraries would be places where there is material. What you need to do, if there's nothing from State Library of Queensland, that's the main issue. And I think it's also demonstrating if you are looking at all of those other collections, what's going to be the is there going to be any outcome that can be fed back to State Library of Queensland's collection, which would enhance that particular subject area? So, yeah.
But it's not compulsory.
No.
To add to the collection, you can simply do great things with the existing collection.
Yep. Absolutely. Are there any final thoughts or comments from the STEAM panel?
You should apply.
You should definitely apply.
Yes, I enjoy reading the applications.
Okay, so that concludes the formal question component of tonight. I'd like to thank all our speakers for coming and giving their time so generously answering questions. Thank you. I'd like to remind you that applications close on the 14th of August. It's a simple online form through Smarty Grants through which to apply. If you have more questions, the State Library of Queensland website, the Queensland Memory Awards, is the place to go. It also has contact details on there. This recording will be available through a link available on those pages as well within about a week. And I'd also just like to thank again our donors via the Queensland Library Foundation, the Saganto Foundation, who make possible the Monica Clare Research Fellowship, the Norman H. Johns Trust via Perpetual, who've supported the Rainbow Research Fellowship, and the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame Fellowship, which is supported through the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame initiative. And I'd like to also thank the Bougen family, who've given generously to support the research into Christine Bougen's legacy. So it's also a bit of a plug for those people who are thinking about if they have any causes that they want to support philanthropically. The Queensland Library Foundation enables us to do our work, and all donations through the Queensland Library Foundation are tax deductible. So, thank you. It's been a very action-packed and information-rich hour and a bit. I'd like to thank you for coming out. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you very much. Good night.